the boy once called a monster a soul-stirring tale of compassion, karma, and redemption. In a silent kingdom where the sunset dyed every rooftop crimson, there once lived a king who could make even the boldest ministers tremble with a mere furrow of his brow. Yet something had turned him into a shadow of himself, not an enemy, nor the tides of history. It was the emptiness in his heart, something no throne could fill, the loneliness of having no heir. To the outside world, it was an empire of grandeur, ceremonies flawless, music echoing through the night. But deep within the royal chambers, the king had grown so gaunt that his robes no longer fit, his lips pale from months of not being able to stomach a single meal. "You don't eat? You don't sleep? Do you want to die?" asked the prime minister, the only man still brave enough to look him in the eye. The king sat in silence. Then, as if finally unsealing a truth held in for a lifetime, he spoke. "I have everything, except an heir. I've married 7 women. But none has given me a child." The minister tilted his head toward the ceiling, where sunlight filtered through the wooden lattice, landing like a smear of blood across his chest. He knew this wasn't just a man's sorrow, it was the haunting of an entire dynasty. "If you permit, I know someone who may be able to help." This person did not live within the city. His name appeared on no royal map. They called him the hermit of the forest, a man who healed souls no one else could understand. At dawn the next day, the king left the palace. No guards, no banners, only the prime minister with a staff in hand to lead the way. They traveled through dense forests all day, where even the light seemed afraid to enter. Only the rustling leaves and the footsteps of the 2 most powerful men in the kingdom could be heard, walking in search of a fragile hope. When they arrived, the hermit's wooden hut was a simple shadow among ancient trees. But inside, the flicker of an oil lamp cast a glow that felt like another realm. The old man was chanting. The words rising from his throat rippled like waves across the ocean of the soul. No one spoke. The king, once able to command armies with a glance, now sat in silence, like a child about to confess a sin. The hermit stopped chanting. His aged, yet clear eyes like an autumn lake met the king's gaze. "You have come because of the sorrow of having no children." The king bowed his head. No one knew why, but his tears began to fall. The hermit sighed, then gave a small nod. "Destiny is not something you can bargain with. But sometimes, compassion opens doors that even prayer cannot. Go to the sacred mango tree nearby. Pick 7 fruits. But heed this: no matter what voice you hear behind you, do not turn around." The king asked, "What if I hear insults?" "Learn patience. For in silence, destiny quietly reshapes itself." On the path to the mango tree, the forest seemed to transform. The wind began to whisper in human voices, "Hey, you foolish king. Childless fool, trying to pick mangoes." The king clenched his fists. His breath quickened. Never in his life had anyone dared call him fool. But this time he didn't respond. He didn't turn back. He did not rage. Only when one of the mangoes flew out of his basket and returned to the tree did he realize, the price of anger is losing what is precious. At last, he returned to the palace with 6 mangoes. But from that moment on, everything began to change, not in the way he had expected. That evening, the palace stirred as if waking from a long slumber. The king returned, carrying a woven basket filled with 6 mangoes still smelling of sap. He spoke nothing of the journey. He never mentioned the strange voices in the forest. He kept those lessons close like a secret only the one who lived it would understand. "This is a royal command," he told his queens. "Eat these mangoes. Ask nothing more." The 6 senior queens looked at one another, eyes wide with confusion. But they obeyed. Only the 7th wife, a quiet woman, rarely favored, was absent. Her mango was entrusted to an elderly maid to deliver to her quarters. But the maid couldn't hear well. Her ears had grown weak. She vaguely understood it was a gift from the king meant for the 7th queen. But noticing the fruit had turned slightly sour, she thought it would be better made into juice. And so, fate shifted paths. The 7th queen sat alone by the window, the wind brushing the curtains like the earth itself sighing. When the maid handed her the glass of mango juice, she suspected nothing. She simply placed a hand to her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered, "If this is heaven's blessing, may I never be alone again." She drank, unaware that a brutal trial had just begun. Time passed quietly, sinking into the soil. Soon, joyous news spread across the harem: all 6 senior queens were pregnant. The palace buzzed with excitement. The king's joy was like a man seeing sunlight after a long winter. He moved with energy, face aglow, the weary lines of sorrow nearly vanished. But he didn't know that in the quietest corner of the palace, the 7th queen was also with child. No one noticed. No one asked. No one knew that within her lonely womb stirred a soul destined to change the kingdom. The day of birth arrived. The 6 queens each bore a prince, healthy, handsome, their cries echoing like royal proclamations. But the 7th queen gave birth to something not quite human, a small monkey, with round eyes and a furry body, but a mysterious light in his gaze. The entire palace was thrown into chaos. The king froze. His lips dried. No one dared speak. Then he roared, "Monster! This is no child of mine." Without investigation, without listening, he declared her an omen of misfortune. And so, like clearing scraps from a feast, she was banished, cast out with her monkey-like child to a hut on the edge of the forest. If you're still watching this video and praying for the mother and her child to find peace, please comment the number 5 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I suggest you do and hit the bell so you won't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating stories that inform and inspire you. There, the mother shed no tears. She had no tears left to cry. But every night, she knelt before a small altar, lit a candle, and whispered, "Heaven, if this is the karma I must bear, let me carry it with my whole life. But please, do not let my son's heart grow cold with hatred." And the child grew not on breast milk, but on unconditional love. The monkey boy bore no resentment. He helped his mother gather firewood, fetch water, and listened to every sacred verse she recited each night. Though not born human, his heart was more human than thousands who walked with human faces. One morning, with the sun still shy behind the clouds, the boy rushed into their hut, eyes glowing. "Mother, I saw my 6 brothers, they carry books, they go to school. I want to learn too." The mother trembled. She sat down and gently cupped his cheek. You're not like them. They'll laugh at you. They'll drive you away." But the boy hugged her tight and whispered, "Mother, I don't need anyone to accept me. I just need you to teach me." And so, from that day on, the forest hut became a classroom. The mother taught letters by drawing with a stick on the dirt floor. The boy learned quickly. Each page of a book was a new discovery. Every story was a bridge connecting him to the world that had once been denied to him. Meanwhile, the 6 brothers, the royal princes, grew older. They knew nothing about their younger sibling in the woods. But when they discovered the monkey boy was learning the same royal curriculum, they were outraged. A monkey dares imitate a prince? Enough. He must be stopped. Some children are born with crowns on their heads. Others are born with invisible chains shackled to their feet like the boy who bore the form of a monkey. When rumors spread that the monkey bastard was studying like a true prince in the forest, the 6 princes born amidst silk and drums could no longer contain themselves. Their royal pride flared like dry grass set aflame. Is he trying to humiliate us? A creature like that dares dream of being a king's son. He needs to be taught a lesson. One day, soldiers under the king's command were sent not to fight a war, but to capture a boy reading by a fire. Leading them was the prime minister, the same man who once guided the king into the forest to meet the hermit. His eyes betrayed a flicker of hesitation, but an order was an order. They arrived at the hut in a soft afternoon rain. The boy was reading a history book about wise rulers, his eyes shining. When he saw the soldiers surround him, he simply looked up, unafraid. "What do you want?" he asked calmly. "The king summons you," a soldier said. "I'll go." "No need to tie me up," the monkey boy replied, rising to his feet. In the royal court, where marble floors gleamed under golden light, he was brought before his 6 brothers and the king, a father who had never acknowledged his existence. "Who are you to read the books of royalty?" one prince shouted. The boy didn't flinch. He looked directly at the king and said, "I am your youngest son." A murmur thundered through the palace. A place accustomed only to honeyed lies had never heard such raw and honest words. "Who are you to claim me as your father?" the king asked sternly, though his eyes glistened. "I am the one left behind in the forest, the child of your 7th wife. I wear the form of a monkey, but I carry the heart of a man. Father, you forgot me." The court fell into utter silence. Then, like a warm wind melting ice, something inside the king broke open. He gazed at the boy for a long time, then stepped down from his throne. He knelt before his son, and for the first time, the hands that once held swords trembled as they touched the boy's cheek. "I was wrong. My child, you are truly my son." That day, the king declared before the entire court. "From this day forward, the 7th prince, though of different form, is of royal blood and a rightful prince of this kingdom. But, hearts do not change as easily as a royal decree." The 6 brothers were not pleased. "If you are truly a prince, then prove it." And so, the trials began. Not long after, the king gave an order: the 6 princes would each ride into the forest to find their future brides, a traditional rite of passage to earn the right of succession. The monkey prince begged to join them. "I don't go to find a wife. I go to understand the world." His mother wept and begged him not to go. But for the first time, the king did not forbid it. "Go, my son. Go, and become who you are meant to be." As the 6 princes set out, they saw their younger brother following silently behind on a small, shaggy, limping horse. "He doesn't deserve to ride with us," one prince sneered. They pretended not to hear him calling. And when they reached a desolate forest, they tied the monkey boy to a tree and left him behind. But fate is never silent. Before the princes could celebrate ridding themselves of a burden, a gang of forest bandits attacked, robbed them, and took them hostage. And it was the boy they had left behind, helped by local villagers and driven by fearless compassion, who came to rescue them. In the dead of night, as wind howled through the rocky cliffs where the bandits slept, he crept quietly to each of his brothers, cutting their ropes, whispering, "Don't be afraid. I'm here now." One brother stammered, "Why don't you hate us?" The monkey boy smiled, his voice soft as wind. Because I'm human. Not a beast. If you're still watching this video and admire the heart of the monkey boy, please comment the number 1 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend doing so and turning on the bell. Your support helps us continue creating powerful content that informs and inspires. At dawn, beneath unfamiliar trees, the 7 brothers, 6 bound by pride, 1 by love, resumed their journey. They said nothing about the rescue. No thanks. No glances of regret. The monkey boy didn't ask. That was his strange gift. He didn't need validation. He only wanted to live as a person. They reached a distant kingdom renowned for its dreamlike princesses. But behind the beauty lay a sorrow well hidden. In that palace, there was a 7th princess, unspoken, unnamed. Born under a comet-streaked sky, she was declared a bad omen. Her mother, the queen, died in childbirth. The superstitious king, drenched in grief, believed the child carried a curse of matricide, and banished her with an old wet nurse from the palace. She grew up beside a river, in a hut of wood and reeds, living as a commoner but carrying royal blood in her veins. Her name was Sundari, which means beauty in the shadows. One morning, as Sundari went to the river with her clay pot, she stumbled upon a strange creature, a boy with the form of a monkey, but eyes that mirrored her own humanity. He didn't flee. Nor did he play like mischievous monkeys. He simply stood there, looking at her as if he'd been waiting a long time to meet someone like him. Are you human? Are you a princess? Both were surprised by the questions, almost as if each could see through the mask the world had forced them to wear. Sundari gave a sad smile. I'm the one they called a bad omen. The monkey boy smiled gently. And I'm the one they called a monster. They began talking. At first, simple greetings, then, sharing stories about life and the dreams they were never allowed to have. Under the shade of the riverside tree, 2 souls the world had cast away began to find comfort in each other. One day, as the 6 princes held a grand wedding feast in that kingdom, each marrying a princess, Sundari was forbidden to go anywhere near the celebration. You're not allowed to show your face. Who wants to see the girl who killed her mother at birth? Her old nurse's heart ached. But Sundari simply smiled. It's okay. I'm used to it. Just don't leave me. Meanwhile, the 6 princes rejoiced in their new marriages. Only the monkey boy was left uninvited, unrecognized as one of them. He sat by the stream where he had first met Sundari, holding a blade of soft grass in his hand. If I were human, could I be with her? He decided to return to the old hut and find her. Sundari smiled when she saw him, but this time, something was different in her eyes. A sadness without name. Something ending, or beginning. Everyone else has chosen their path. But me, I was never chosen. Then, will you choose me? Sundari froze. But you're a monkey? A monster? The castaway prince? No, the first person who ever asked if I had the right to choose. She nodded without hesitation, without fear. In a world full of hollow titles, they chose each other with human hearts. And so, in a tiny hut, no trumpets, no wedding gown, no garlands, just 2 hands held tightly together amid the wind and the whispered prayers of a mother long ago, they married. The very next morning, the monkey boy returned to the palace, where the other princes still slept after their grand weddings. He raised his voice proudly. I am married, she is a true princess. And I needed no one's permission. The 6 brothers were furious. The thought of being outdone by a monkey enraged them. He can't be happy before us. And so, a scheme began to form. There are corners in the human heart where no light can reach. The 6 princes, once the pride of the kingdom, now saw only one thing: jealousy. They couldn't bear that the brother they had once tied to a tree, once called a beast, was now the only one to marry a true princess, beautiful in body and soul, and loved without conditions. "We let him outshine us in our father's own palace," the eldest snarled. "No. This ends now. Forever." The plan was crafted in silence, like a snake slithering through grass. They pretended to feel remorse, inviting their brother and Sundari onto the royal dragon boat meant for honeymooning. "We're brothers. Blood is blood. Now that we're one family, let's forget the past." Their voices were warm. Their eyes even seemed moist with tears, so convincing, even the wind paused to listen. Sundari hesitated. But the monkey boy smiled. "Maybe they've changed." The dragon boat drifted down the silver river, moonlight above like an ancient coin cast upon still waters. When the night grew deepest, when only the sound of ripples tapped against the boat's edge, the 6 princes made their move. "Sweet dreams, little brother," they whispered, and lifted the bed where the young couple lay asleep and hurled it into the river. A dull splash echoed the end of a long dream. They returned to the palace smiling, hearts light as if they just cleared trash from their lives. But truth doesn't sink easily beneath water. That night, Sundari, guided by the instinct of someone who'd lived beside pain, didn't fall into deep sleep. She sensed they were being moved, being carried. Just as the water slapped the boat's hull, she pulled her husband up, and they rolled off the bed before it was cast away. The bed sank, but they survived. Clinging to each other in the dark, in the heart-numbing cold of the river, but the fire of love and awareness within them never went out. The next morning, the palace buzzed with excitement as the 6 princes returned. The king asked, "Where is your brother? My 7th son? And where is Sundari?" The 6 bowed their heads, wearing sorrow like a mask. "They fell into the river. We tried to save them, but..." The king paused. His heart skipped. The instincts of a father stirred within. At that moment, a voice rang from the main gate. "Father! We've returned." The entire court rushed out. And there they were, not corpses, but 2 figures, soaked, exhausted, yet still holding hands, stepping through the gate. Every eye widened. Every tongue fell silent. The monkey boy raised his head, his voice calm. "Father, our brothers tried to kill us. But my mother once taught me, hatred is a knife that wounds the hand that holds it. So I ask only one thing: let us live as humans." The king stood frozen. Then fury roared through him like a storm. "Throw all 6 traitorous sons and their wives out of the palace. None shall touch the throne." The palace shook. The 6 princes fell to their knees, learning at last that titles cannot save the soul when karma comes knocking. That evening, the king personally led his 7th son and Sundari to the most beautiful chamber in the palace, the room locked ever since the banishment of the 7th queen. Its window opened to the garden where the old hermit once visited. The wind passed through bamboo there, chiming like distant temple bells. "You are the light in the darkness I once denied," the king whispered. That night, as Sundari lay on her side on the pillow, she felt something strange. Her hand brushed her husband's skin, and instead of coarse fur, she felt human flesh. She turned and saw long legs, a slender back, and a man sleeping soundly beside her. The night was so quiet you could hear the wind sighing through the cracks in the door. Sundari lay silently next to the husband she had once affectionately called "my little monkey." But tonight, as moonlight slipped through the silk curtains, she sensed something entirely unfamiliar. There was no soft wheezing from a furry chest. No familiar tail twitching between her knees. She turned and her heart nearly stopped. The man lying beside her was no monkey. His long black hair fell across his forehead, his sun-kissed skin smooth, his shoulders broad unlike anything she'd ever seen. In the moonlight, his face looked sculpted of water and fire, bearing the strength of a warrior and the peace of a meditating sage. And then his lips moved faintly, whispering her name in a dream-like murmur. Sundari. Sundari gasped. She nearly called out but instead trembled like a leaf falling from a branch. Who is this? Am I dreaming? She pulled the blanket up quietly, her eyes never leaving him. She didn't sleep that night. Early the next morning, as the first light touched the tips of the palace towers, she ran to the Queen Mother's chamber, the same woman who was once cast out, called a curse, and now honored as the mother of a miracle. Mother, something strange happened. My husband is no longer a monkey. The Queen froze. She set down her tea, her eyes wide. What did you say? He turned into a man. Radiant like sunlight. But still, my husband. The Queen trembled, then burst into tears. Then it's true. The hermit's prophecy has come to pass. She told the story. Long ago, when I was exiled from the palace, I met the hermit again in the forest. He looked into my eyes and said, "You carry a child unlike any other. But his heart will be like the Buddha's. He will show compassion to those who scorn him, and forgive those who harm him." He said, when the child finds someone who loves him for his heart, not his form, the curse will dissolve. Sundari fell silent. She understood now. The curse was never terrifying. It was just a veil to test the hearts of others. That afternoon, the king, queen, and the entire court were summoned to the grand hall. The seventh son, the one once called a monkey, entered. For the first time, in the form of a true prince. The aging king wept the moment he saw him. He descended the throne not as a monarch, not with a crown or sword, just as a father, arms open. You have become who you truly are. The prince embraced his father, then turned and bowed to the court. I am not a miracle. I am the result of love. I am the lesson of breaking judgment. I am the truth your hearts once forgot. The entire court bowed their heads. No words were spoken. But their eyes glistened with tears. That night, as Sundari and her husband returned to their chamber, she asked quietly, Why did you never tell me that you could become human?" The prince smiled gently. "Because if you loved me when I was a monkey, then your love was true. If you had known I was a man from the start, there would have been no trial to overcome. Only when we love the ugly in each other, do we deserve to hold what's beautiful." Sundari laid her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat like the steady drum in a mountain temple, strong, serene, deep. And she whispered, "So it turns out, the Buddha doesn't have to sit on a lotus throne. He can wear the skin of a monkey, and still carry a heart that lights the forest like a lantern." One windless morning, the 6 former princes, men who once held glory in their palms, walked quietly down village roads they never imagined their feet would touch. Their clothes were worn. The proud spark once in their royal eyes now flickered like dying embers, neither burning nor extinguished. They had been banished from the palace. No longer princes. No longer praised by trumpets and cheers. Only unanswered questions remained. Who are we, without our titles? Did our envy ever bring us anything real? In a small village outside the city, they found temporary shelter in the home of an old farmer, once a palace guard. He didn't recognize them. Didn't need to. He simply said, "If you know how to work, stay. If not, keep walking." For the first time in their lives, the 6 former princes rolled up their sleeves to pull weeds, spread manure, and plow fields. Their hands blistered, their backs ached, but what shamed them most wasn't the dirt under their nails. It was the farmer's quiet gratitude after each meal. "Thank you for helping me today." It was a sentence no one had ever spoken to them, though once they were praised by thousands. At night, they sat by the fire, listening in silence to the crackle of burning wood. Their youngest brother, the one they tried to kill, still lived in the palace, still a prince, still respected. And they who once mocked him now saw only their own shadows reflected in the eyes of the poor. One night, the eldest brother, the prince who had once been the most aggressive, quietly folded a piece of paper and placed it on the old farmer's makeshift altar. "I was wrong. Please, Buddha, give me a second chance." The next morning, the sky opened in a summer rain, gentle and fragrant like blossoms. They sat huddled beneath the thatched roof, and for the first time in years, they cried. Not from hunger, but from the realization that something inside them had long decayed and now was finally being washed clean. 30 days passed in silence. The 6 princes were no longer princes. No one addressed them with noble titles. People simply called them the laborers from the western field. And strangely enough, the more they lost their titles, the more they began to understand themselves. They no longer felt shame over dirty feet or call-used hands. They only felt ashamed that there had once been a brother who dared to love, dared to live, dared to forgive, while they had not. One afternoon, the 4th brother, the one once known for his cunning, was plowing the earth when his foot struck something solid in the mud. He dug it up. It was a small stone Buddha statue, chipped on one corner, but its face still held a perfect expression of compassion. He didn't know why he knelt down. He only knew that the tears came, as if they had never been shed before. That night, they built a large fire in the fields. The wind stirred the young rice stalks, and the flickering flames cast their faces in light, faces reflecting old mistakes they thought were long buried. "We tried to kill him. And he was the one who saved us. We failed not because we lost a throne, but because we lost our humanity." They decided to return. Not to ask for forgiveness, but to be worthy of judgment. On the road home, each carried a small object. One carried the broken Buddha statue tucked into his robe. One carried a blade of young rice, symbolizing hope reborn from the mud. Another carried a hardened lump of soil his envy once solidified into hatred. "We don't return as princes," the eldest said. "We return as students, of a younger brother who surpassed us in what it means to be human." They reached the palace gates on a foggy morning. No trumpets, no banners, no welcome. Only confused guards and murmuring villagers whispering, "The traitor princes have come back." But the brothers didn't react. They had no pride left to defend. Only a fragile faith in the goodness they once trampled. Inside the grand hall, the king and queen were having tea. The 7th prince was reading aloud to Sundari, his deep voice echoing gently in the morning light. When he saw his 6 brothers kneeling on the stone floor, the prince paused. The book slipped from his hand. Sundari placed her hand softly on his shoulder, like a bird's wing. "They have returned." The eldest brother spoke, without lifting his head. "We're not here to ask for forgiveness. We're here to be scolded. Yell at us, if it helps ease your heart. Send us away, if that would be fairer. But if possible, let us learn how to be human from you." The hall fell silent. Then the prince descended, no words, no judgment. He simply embraced each of them, one by one. No blame. No reproach. Only a hand resting on a brother's shoulder, an unspoken acceptance, complete and whole. If your hearts have returned, then you never truly left. And the entire palace wept. That evening, the 7 brothers worked side by side behind the palace, clearing land to grow a small flower garden. They chose the smallest seeds, the poorest soil, and nurtured it together. To remind ourselves, one of them said, that even the worst things can bloom, if tended with love. In the little garden they tended together, the broken Buddha statue, the one the 4th brother found in the mud, was placed with care beneath a Bodhi tree. None of them expected that it would one day reveal a long-buried truth. One night, as the moonlight filled the courtyard and the scent of magnolia drifted through the air like invisible incense, Sundari came alone to sit before the statue. She brought no incense, no prayer. She simply sat. I ask for nothing. I just want to listen. The wind passed through the cracks in the statue. And from a fracture in its shoulder, an old slip of paper fell covered in soft golden dust. Sundari unfolded it. And she read not with her eyes, but with a strange sensation running down her spine, as if she had always known this truth, but had forgotten it. A soul that once shattered a mother's trust in a past life will bear an inhuman form in this one to learn love from its source. Only when that soul is loved without the eyes of judgment, will the curse be undone. She froze. The paper had no signature. No one knew who had written it. But in her heart, every piece clicked together like the gears of karma. She ran to the study where her husband, the one who was once a monkey, was writing in his journal. You knew, didn't you? He looked up. His eyes showed no surprise, no denial. The night before I married you, I dreamed of a woman in brown robes. She had no face, but her voice was warm like embers. She said, in a past life, you turned away from a mother's love. So in this life, you will be the child who is abandoned. And only when you kneel before unconditional love, will you become who you truly are. Sundari's voice caught. Then, who were you in that past life? Perhaps someone who betrayed another's faith. Perhaps an ungrateful child. Maybe, someone like my father who once called his own daughter a curse. And maybe, you were the one I turned my back on. Both of them fell silent. Outside, rain began to fall light and soft, like mist. Inside, something was melting to a fog of doubt, of spiritual weight, of sadness they couldn't name since the day they were born. The next morning, the queen his mother came to sit with her daughter-in-law beneath the tree. She gently touched the Buddha statue and softly said, I once blamed the heavens for giving me a child with such a strange form, but I didn't understand then it was my karma to receive, to learn what unconditional love truly means. I once prayed that my son would become human again. But it turns out, he already was. It was the world that lacked the eyes to see it. That afternoon, the royal court held a great prayer ceremony not to glorify a deity, but to offer repentance to all the souls that had been misunderstood, forgotten, or deemed unworthy. The 7th prince, now the official crown prince, stood at the center of the square beside Sundari. In their hands was no crown, only a white lotus flower. They say the lotus grows from the mud. But has anyone asked, if that mud was once the tears of souls the world cast away? I was once a child with the face of a monkey, mocked and rejected. But today, I want to say, no one is a monster if seen through the eyes of compassion. The entire square fell silent. And then, from within the crowd, those who had suffered the lame, the lepers, the mute began to kneel. An old woman, trembling, said, I once cast out my disabled grandchild. Today, I want to bring them home." Tears began to fall. No one told anyone to do it, but people embraced, apologized, forgave one another as if humanity had been cleansed by the light within their hearts. On the first morning after the ceremony, the sun rose without grandeur. Just a quiet sliver of light slipping through the clouds like a mother's hand gently waking her sleeping child. The seventh prince, no longer called the monkey child, stood on a high balcony, gazing down at the garden where the seven brothers had once planted tiny seeds. The flowers had bloomed. Not brightly, not proudly, but soft, like hearts that had let go of their rage. Beside him stood Sundari, the princess once abandoned, now a symbol of patience, of love that asked for no diamonds or throne, only a heart warm enough to hold another's hand in the dark. The old king, his hair now almost white, came to his son. For the first time, he knelt before him in front of the entire kingdom. "My son, please forgive me." The prince helped him up and gently said, "You once cast out a child with a different form, but I understand. It was fear. And fear is darkness. We all lost our way, but we found each other again through the light within." The six brothers stepped forward, each embracing him in turn. They said nothing. Instead, they placed something in his hands. A Buddha statue, repaired with gold. A stalk of dried rice, still perfectly shaped. A smooth stone, once hardened by hatred, now a paperweight in the study. We kept the things that once made us fall, to remind us never to fall that way again. That night, the whole palace stayed awake. There was no grand feast, no dancing. Only a circle of storytelling, where villagers gathered by a fire to hear the tale of a boy with a monkey's face, a forgotten princess, and their journey out of judgment. A small girl, about 7, asked, "Why did he turn into a monkey?" The seventh prince smiled and answered, "Because once, I forgot how to be human. So the Buddha made me start again, from gratitude to endurance to forgiveness and finally, love. Like when you fall from your bed, you have to learn how to stand, then walk again. That's when you truly understand how precious it is to stand tall." The next day, the prince declined the throne. A ruler should not sit above the people but walk among them. He and Sundari left the palace to live in a small monastery near the forest where he and his mother were once imprisoned. They taught, healed, fed the poor, and raised orphans. They needed no throne. Because a heart that knows how to love is the greatest throne of all. Years later, under the light of the moon, a group of students chanted sutras beneath the Bodhi tree where the broken Buddha once sat. One child asked, "Teacher, were you ever a prince?" The man with salt and pepper hair smiled gently. "Once, but now, I'm just someone who learned how to kneel and ask for forgiveness." And when the child asked again, "Then, who is the most noble person of all?" He looked toward the moon's reflection shimmering on the lake, and softly replied, "The one who dares to love, even when they are called a monster." Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share one thing this story taught you, and how you'll carry it into your life. Your voice matters. Reading your reflections brings strength, healing, and inspiration to us all. If this story moved your heart, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue crafting stories that awaken the soul. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.